this package, state government seeks assistance of Navy to combat activities of pirates and militants. National Union of Road Transport Workers of Private State Branch elects 14-member executive. Newly sworn-in ministries assigned portfolios. Details shortly. Good morning and thanks for joining us. I am Akaniene Popo. The commanding officer, Naval Operations Base Ibaka in the local government area, Captain Adedoku Sinyebade, played host to officials of the Ministry of Transport, led by the Commissioner Dr. Godwin Ntogode. Dr. Ntogode was in Ibaka Naval Base to sue for more synergy between the Nigerian Navy and the state government in order to combat the activities of pirates and militants. Eyawen Opo was there.
Dr. Ntogode told the commanding officer that the Ministry of Transport is vested with the responsibility of overseeing the activities of the air, land and marine transportation, hence the reason for the visit. The state government, Dr. Ntogode noted, wants to guarantee the safety of the people before industrializing the entire state. For this to be achieved, the Commissioner said there has to be a collaboration between the transport operators and other agencies. Dr. Ntogode appreciated the Navy for its hard work in ensuring that marine operators are safe from pirate attack and promised government assistance in providing the Navy with necessary tools for its operations.
We cannot exercise the full discharge of our responsibility as a ministry of transport without collaborating with your institution, collaborating with you, and strengthening the synergy so that we can at all times tap into your wealth of expertise.
Responding, the commanding officer, Captain Adedoku Sinyebade, thanked the Commissioner for the visit, describing it as apt and timely. Captain Sinyebade said one of the greatest vision of Navy is to make waterways safe for business and other kind of operations, and lauded the state government for extending its hand of fellowship. The commanding officer appealed to the people of Ibaka and the neighboring villages to feed the Navy with the necessary information to assist it get rid of piracy in the territorial waters.
We have some challenges in the waterways, which we are trying with the limited resources that we have to combat. We can't do it all alone, and the ministry is one of the paramount agencies that we need to really collaborate with if we are going to achieve anything in the waterways.
The commanding officer later presented a souvenir to the Commissioner for Transport. Eyawen Opo reporting.
A 14-member executive has been elected to run the affairs of the state branch of the National Union of Road Transport Workers, NURTW, for the next 4 years. It has Chief Sunday Nelson Ekpo as the chairman, Mr. Kwata Christopher, deputy chairman, while Mr. Ubongetum will serve as the organizing secretary. The new executives were elected during the 8th Quadrennial Delegates Conference of the Union, held at the NLC Center at Anaforuyo. Livingstone Daniel has more.
Setting the tone for the election, the Chief Returning Officer, Alhaji Tukur Mohammed, said 14 posts will be contested for, and voters for the election will be 5 delegates drawn from the 23 registered chapters of the Union across the state. He appealed to the contestants to conduct themselves properly in order to enhance smooth conduct of the exercise. At the end of the keenly contested election, Chief Sunday Nelson Ekpo defeated his rival, Sir Godwin Ekpo, with 64 votes against 56 to clinch the chairmanship position. Mr. Kwata Christopher defeated Joseph Uko with 66 votes against 53 votes to emerge the deputy state chairman. For the post of organizing secretary, it was Ubongetum who emerged with 66 votes against Idoren's Adams. Others who won at the election were Joel Ubinna, state vice chairman 1, Clement Udomakban, State Vice Chairman 2, and Asukwede Udom, State Vice Chairman 3. Also, Chief Emmanuel Umoite Mesh as the State Treasurer, Ifyo Okoneyo, Financial Secretary, Major Isaac Nsese, State Auditor. Daniel Tu is the State Deputy Editor, while Matthew Moore is the Deputy Treasurer. The Secretary of the Union is usually appointed by the National Secretariat and sent to the states. The new executive will later sworn into office by Barrister Ubong Sylvanus.
That I shall uphold and defend the Constitution of the Union at all times. Render honest, impartial, and efficient service to the Union.
The National President of NURTW, Alhaji Najim Osman, charged those who emerge victorious to lead by example. Represented by the National Organizing Secretary, Alhaji Salusi Yayi, Alhaji Osman noted that both leadership and followership must strive through collective effort to convert the vast human and material resources at their disposal to lead the Union to an enviable position.
Having clearly demonstrated our ability to conduct free, fair, and credible national delegate conference that was devoid of rancor, lawlessness, and violence, we are duty bound to ensure that it is reflected in the state delegate conference that is simultaneously taking place in all the state capital of the Federation.
Also speaking, the state NLC chairman, Comrade Etimukbo, assured the Union of NLC's support at all times.
Solidly behind all of you members of the NURTW in the state. Your Excellency, as has been repeated several times, this sector is a big employer of labor. We sometimes wonder if all these drivers and all those employed to work alongside the drivers were unemployed and were still part of the labor market, what would have happened to our side?
The outgone state chairman of NURTW, Comrade Wem James, said his administration maintained an harmonious relationship with other trade unions in the state, the state government, and transport stakeholders, and called for support for the new executive to enable them succeed.
Having served 2 tenures in office, by the grace of God, after those turbulent years of titanic struggle, we can stand tall with the confirmation of all well-meaning members and well-wishers and all of us even here present to declare that the difference is very, very clear.
In his acceptance speech, the new chairman, Chief Sunday Nelson Ekpo, thanked his colleagues for the confidence reposed on him and promised to do his best to move the association forward.
I want all of us to use to cooperate and run this union together so that we can move to another level. No bias, no problem, no trouble with anybody. I want us to come and work together henceforth so that we can move this union to another level. Thank you very much.
Goodwill messages were presented by the Federal Ministry of Labour and Productivity, Federal Road Safety Commission, and the Civil Defense, among others. Livingston Daniel reporting.
Transactional advisors for the Akwa Ibom deep sea port are to be put in place in line with international based practice. The Commissioner for Special Duties, Engineer Tidin who disclosed this while speaking in a television current affairs program unveiling the mandate, said necessary technical details are being worked out for the take-up of the project in line with investors' demands.
Are being considered at the industrial park sites as incentive to investors.
At some point, we were working on bringing in dedicated lines into it. We needed a substation. So this administration has realized that a couple of substations, power substations in the city has to be created.
The special duty.
The 85th annual session of the Nigeria Conference of African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church has ended in Uyo. The conference, which is held annually to take stock of God's benevolence in the lives of the faithful of the church, took place at the Metropolitan AME Zion Church, 7A Noidem Lane, off Nepal Line, Uyo. The conference has as its theme Christian Stewards and feature presentation of episcopal address by the presiding bishop, presentation of financial reports, election of delegates to the General Conference in the United States of America, and ordination of pastors, deacons, and deaconesses, as well as communion. The presiding bishop of the Nigeria Conference of AME Zion Church, Bishop Michael Rincha, charged Christians to worship God in truth and called on Christians to endeavor to make God's presence felt in their place of residence, place of work, and place of worship, while urging faithful of the church to exude attributes worthy of ambassador of God's kingdom.
They need to be fearful of God. They need to be fruitful, go out and produce, and they need to be faithful. And as long as they are fearful, fruitful, and faithful, God will bless with the increase.
The state governor, Mr. Udum Emmanuel, who was represented at the grand finale of the conference by the special advisor to the governor on religious affairs, Pastor Gabriel Akwatang, described the AME Zion Church as one of the oldest Christian centers in the country that still retain the virtues of Christianity. The governor called on Christians to emulate the ways of Christ in their everyday life, while charging them to continually pray for the government. Highlights of the conference was a presentation of Reverend Yu Iefiong as the African candidate for the office of the presiding bishop, an election of Brother Ansedem, the president, Barrick Men's Fellowship, and Conference Director of Public Affairs as the official delegate to the General Conference, which will take place at the United States of America next year. Participants at the conference said the conference was very rewarding.
And then we're going to receive reports from our presiding elders and the other pastors and officers. And then based on those reports, the church will be able to re-strategize on its evangelism, re-strategize on other matters of the church.
And I thank God that God has given me the grace to partner in the work of His kingdom.
And you're going to always be supported, because if it's not for the women of the AME Zion Church.
The next annual conference of the church will be held at Nyongeta Chapel, AME Zion Church, Okwiboku, Uduran District, between 3rd and 6th of November 2016. You're still watching Channel 45 News at dawn. We now take a break. We'll be right back. Please stay with us.
There is a land of great beauty and a wonderful people. Here, Mary Slessor called home until she passed on to greater glory. Here, Lord Lugard lived and administered Nigeria. The hills roll like the waves, and the waves rise like the hills. A land named after God, Akwa Ibom State, the land of promise. Welcome to Akwa Ibom, the land of promise.
You're welcome back. The traditional institution in Akwa Ibom State has been tasked to rely on the dictates of the Dakata Initiative for Self-Reinvention. This was part of recommendations given by Dr. Anyekan Brown of the University of Uyo while delivering a lecture organized to honor the life and times of the late clan head of Northern Nuran, Etebom Basi Temakman. Lecture which had as its theme Akwa Ibom State Traditional Institution and the Dakata Initiative, Lessons from the Life and Times of His Highness Etebom Basi Temakman, was held at the Uyo Traditional Rulers Council, Wellington Bassey Way, Uyo. AKMC TV News was at the event. The report is here presented.
Dr. Brown, who thoroughly analyzed the Dakada initiative, starting from its origins and creed, said the late Etebom Etemakpan, though from a very humble background, defied the circumstances of his birth, distinguished himself everywhere he went, and rose to greatness. He noted that the excellent personnel of the departed clan head and outstanding performances through his service years, his leadership of the defunct National Republican Party of Nigeria, founding Npisong, as well as the first General Secretary of the Akwa Isobi Maison Ibibio, among other achievements, were a result of diligence, courage, and discipline. The guest lecturer said for government to achieve outstanding success in every sector, it should practice the precepts of the Dakada initiative and make sure that only people with proven integrity and pedigree were given appointments. He enjoined traditional rulers to shore up their statuses like those of their equivalents in other regions by blending the Dakada initiative with self-rediscovery.
The value our culture has granted to traditional rulers is very low compared to what obtains in the northern and southwestern parts of Nigeria. This is inconceivable in the present day Akwa Ibom State. It is inconceivable in the sense that by the time you are already up there is a psychological feeling of superiority to even the school you want to deal in. I trust that as we leave this place today, it may take us decades, but it takes time to get committed to a point of raising the stakes for our traditional institutions.
The chairman on the occasion, Dr. Donatus Okun, while likening the life of the late clan head to the Dakada initiative, said the late Etebom Basiapan was concerned by whatever negatively affected the poor and disadvantaged people in the society. The chairman eulogized the late clan head's eloquence, describing him as a complete man of affairs.
And in the state of Dakada initiative, reawakening our consciousness of consciousness, are we reawakening to continue to deprive and oppress the people, or we are reawakening to make sure wealth is distributed efficiently for the benefit of mankind?
The chairman of the Central Planning Committee for the funeral, Otwekon Peter Ifeong, said he was deeply impacted by the life of the departed clan head. He noted that the successes recorded by the late Etebom Basiapan was the proof that with diligence, hard work, courage, and patience, anybody could succeed.
So when you come to a traditional setting, you have the immediate family for the head. You have the extended family for the head. You also have for the head. And you go on to have the village for the head. And the village come together to form a clan for the head.
Governor Udom Emmanuel has condoled the Efang Akuninyang family over the demise of their father and former Federal Commissioner in the Revenue Mobilization and Location and Fiscal Commission, Reverend Efang Akuninyang. Mr. Udom Emmanuel, who was accompanied by the Deputy Governor, Mr. Moses Eko, and members of the State Executive Council, as well as some political stakeholders in the state, expressed his condolences when he visited the Efang country home at Ikorimo, Nsrubim local government. Governor Udom said the news of the demise of Reverend Efang took him as a surprise. Mr. Udom Emmanuel, who described death as an appointment which all must keep, urged the family to be consoled by the words of God, even as he prayed that the late Reverend Yang may find eternal rest. Responding on behalf of the family, the eldest son of the deceased, Mr. Ubong Yang, said he was grateful to God for the life of his father and the much he had impacted in their lives. Mr. Yang expressed gratitude to Governor Udom Emmanuel for sharing in the family moment of grief. The Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Economic Development, Elder Eyaikubumana, on Monday, led directors in the ministry to commiserate with an elder statesman and immediate past chairman, Hospitals Management Board, Sir Val Attar, over the death of his mother. In a condolence message, the permanent secretary, Elder Omana, said the ministry was grieved by the news of the death of Mrs. Deborah Balajoke Charles Atta. He described the late Mrs. Atta as an example of a good wife and mother who served as a guiding light to her children and siblings. The permanent secretary urged the bereaved family to be strong in the Lord. Responding, the immediate past chairman of Hospitals Management Board, Sir Balata, thanked the ministry for the visit, saying his mother, who hailed from Ekiti State, was also a strong disciplinarian and courageous woman who was able to survive for 31 years after her husband's death, and expressed appreciation to God for keeping him alive to bury her.
My mother, 90 years, she lived a strong disciplinarian, came here, had a courtship with my father. When my father left here to Ibadan School of Agric in 1945, my mother was at the domestic center of plantation.
It was a gathering of the who's who at Akpautong, Esereket local government area, when the father of S.M. Yibo, a two-term member of the House of Representatives, Elder Sunday Dogo Kwayibo, was buried. The funeral service of the late Ayibo, who died at the age of 78, was conducted by Kwaibu Church in Nigeria, Esereket Superintendency. AINOPOL reports that Governor Udom Emmanuel, members of the State Executive Council, members of the National Assembly and politicians attended the funeral.
Even when it is obvious that people feel sad, devastated, and sometimes cry when they lose their loved ones, the story was different for the family of Sunday Yibo, who chose to celebrate the life and times of their late father. Reason for celebrating their father's exit perhaps may have been that he lived a fulfilled life. The life that the septuagenarian Elder Yibo lived was re-echoed in Governor Udom Emmanuel's message of condolence to the family, as read by the Permanent Secretary, Governor's Office, Pastor Basi Umo. The message described the deceased as a God-fearing, patriotic, unassuming politician and an elder statesman whose wise counsel built a solid foundation in Esereket and the state. Governor Emmanuel enjoined the family to take solace that their father left legacies that will be time immemorial.
Although it is appointed unto all human beings once to die, the transition of this great patriot of your family, a community leader, has left many with deep sense of deprivation.
Testimonies from the representative of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the PDP State Chairman, the Paramount Ruler of Esereket, Chief of Naval Staff, Akpautong Village, and the Transition Chairman of Esereket eulogized the virtues of late Elder Sunday Yibo. The biography of the deceased indicated that Elder Yibo was a carpenter who rose to become an inspiration to many. He was said to have been a role model with reformed mindset, a quintessential organizer, an astute administrator, and a father whose hard work has produced politicians, entrepreneurs, engineers, medical doctors, pilots, and cyber scientists. Preaching at the funeral, the superintendent of Kwaibu Church, Esereket, the Reverend Johnson Ekbo, who spoke on Is Your Name in the Book of Life, said people are happy to be identified with worldly pleasures rather than seeking the kingdom of God, and enjoined the people to turn away from their sins in order to have their names in God's book of life.
Go now and become that society you have registered your name. Go now and remove those rings that cannot help you. Go and initiate yourself with Jesus. It shall be well with you.
The funeral featured presentation of condolence messages by groups and individuals, choir ministration, performance by Pure Brass Band, and prayer for the bereaved family. The children of Elder Sunday Yibo, Eseme Helen, and grandchild Joshua spoke on what they will miss in their late father.
Even when I lost my voice, he was always there to speak for me. And I know when my wings were weak, he provided the wind for me to fly. And such a father, I doubt if any other human being has a father like that.
That my father told me right from my youth that he wished that I should become a medical doctor. Today I have fulfilled the purpose and the request of my father.
I will miss him as a great leader.
Earlier, a valedictory service was held in Esreket Local Government Council in honor of the deceased, who was a one-time chairman of the local government area. Survived by children, grandchildren, and other relatives, the body of the septuagenarian Elder Sunday Edogukwa Eyibo was later committed to Mother Earth at his residence in Akwautong, Esreket Local Government area. Iyageno Paul reporting.
5 months after the inauguration of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration, a new executive council has been inaugurated with a charge on them to proceed to work speedily and justify the confidence reposed on them. Mercy Ekere tells us about this and more on a national and foreign news segment.
President Muhammadu Buhari has inaugurated a new executive council. He has also announced the ministries that the ministers have been assigned to head. The inauguration took place at the council chambers of the presidential villa, where the ministers took their oaths of office and allegiance. President Buhari charged the new ministers to proceed to work speedily and justify the confidence reposed in them.
And we are optimistic that bringing this set of ministers into the service of our country today is a step in the right direction, a timely move towards realizing our positive goals for our country.
Among the new ministers is Senator Udoma of Akwa Ibom State, who has been assigned to head the Ministry of Budget and National Planning. President Muhammadu Buhari has retired 17 permanent secretaries of the Federal Civil Service and has approved the appointment of 18 new permanent secretaries. A total number of 36 permanent secretaries have been deployed, 25 of them to the 25 ministries of the Federal Civil Service, while 11 of them were deployed to various offices in the Presidency, Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation, and Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. The Presidency had, ahead of the inauguration of the Federal Executive Council, effected some changes in the Federal Civil Service, with a slash of the previous 29 ministries to 25. The ministries of Police Affairs, Special Duties, and Aviation have been scrapped. The Ministry of Aviation now comes under the Ministry of Transportation. The ministries of Lands, Housing, Urban Development and Works have been merged to become the Ministry of Works and Housing. The ministries of Information, Culture, National Orientation and Tourism have been collapsed into one, Ministry of Information and Culture. Also, the Ministry of Sports and Ministry of Youth Development have been merged to form the Ministry of Sports and Youth Development. The European Union, EU, has called on African leaders to play their part in trying to solve the migration crisis by taking back migrants who have left their countries for economic reasons, stating that only refugees from war-stricken countries will be able to apply for asylum. The call was made during a migration summit in Malta, attended by 50 leaders from Europe and Africa. The EU has said in return for cooperation from the African nations, billions of euros will be offered for development assistance. The EU leaders also said they want to keep their focus on Africa, as many of the current refugees who arrive Europe are from African countries.
You can also watch AKBC TV News online by logging on to akbconline.org or follow us on Twitter at AKBC454 or on Facebook at AKBC Channel 45. To end the news, another look at the major stories. The state government has sought the assistance of the Nigerian Navy to combat activities of pirates and militants. The Commissioner for Transport, Dr. Godwin Tugude, during a visit to the Naval Forward Operations Base Ibaka, said the activities of pirates and militants are affecting water transportation. We also brought you a report that the newly sworn-in ministers have been assigned portfolios. That's our package this Thursday morning. Have a splendid day. Good morning.